House of Representatives advocates dedicated fund to provide for safety and security of school children. President Tinubu solicits support of the House to implement critical reforms in the oil and gas sector. And House commits to facilitating national rebirth through purposeful legislation. Glad to know you've joined us on You and Your Reps. I am Victor, as welcome to the program. The House of Representatives has called for the establishment of a dedicated fund to provide for the safety and security of school children. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, conversed this at the resumption of plenary after a 40-day recess for the Easter and Salah holidays.
Lawmakers exchange banters at resumption of plenary, excited at moving back to the main chamber for plenary after 21 months of renovation. The Speaker's opening remarks set the tone as the House condemned the spate of terrorist attacks on schools this year, while affirming support for the security forces to nip the challenges in the bud.
Schools, which should be sanctuaries of learning and safety, have become targets for terrorists and kidnappers. These acts are not only heinous, but are direct attacks on the future of Nigeria and rob children of their right to education and secure childhood. We will not allow the ambitions of our children to be thwarted by fear. The House stands united with the armed forces and will advocate for comprehensive strategies to safeguard our schools.
Adopting a motion of urgent public importance, the House resolved to summon the Minister of Petroleum Resources and industry stakeholders to brief lawmakers on measures being put in place to address the current fuel scarcity and avert reoccurrence. The House also requested the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to suspend the recently announced tariff hike affecting Band A customers, pending an investigation by the legislature.
Elsewhere, President Bola Tinubu is soliciting support of the National Assembly to implement critical reforms in the nation's oil and gas sector to make it globally competitive, as well as a propeller for economic growth and development. Represented by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, at the opening of a two-day retreat for members of the House of Representatives, President Tinubu emphasizes that the executive and legislature share a common responsibility in shaping the future of the nation.
This retreat for 360 lawmakers at the instance of the leadership of the House of Representatives is anchored on the theme Navigating Change, Legislative Strategies for Economic Transformation. The focus is to enlighten lawmakers on strategies for implementing the Petroleum Industry Act, which everyone agrees is critical to reforming the oil and gas industry. For the government, reforms are ongoing to unlock the potentials of the oil and gas sector, and executive-legislative synergy cannot be overemphasized.
Mr. President says that we are pushing policies to attract investment in the oil and gas sector. He wants me to remind you that recently, he signed an executive order to unlock about $10 billion in fresh investments in the sector. This will happen through fiscal incentives for non-associated gas, midstream and deepwater oil and gas developments. We will need, Mr. President says, the support of the National Assembly to fully implement some of these reforms, as statutory changes will be required in some areas.
The legislature, on its part, is ready to aid the president's economic reforms, especially in enacting laws that will strengthen tax administration.
The People's House is ready to collaborate closely with the executive to enact targeted legislative interventions to address our current challenges and capitalize on new opportunities.
Meanwhile, the 10th National Assembly has pledged commitment through purposeful legislation to facilitate collaboration with the Ministry of Information and National Orientation in its renewed vigor to foster national rebirth. Now, this was when members of the House of Representatives Committee on Information visited the ministry's headquarters at Radio House, Abuja.
It is the first oversight duty by members of the committee to the ministry under the watch of Mohammed Idris since August 2023. Members scrutinized the ministry's 2023 and 2024 budget documents and took a unanimous decision to support the Ministry of Information and National Orientation with a supplementary budget for an upward review of the ministry's recurrent and capital expenditure in view of its objective of national reorientation.
One of the cardinal objectives that this ministry is focusing on now is the restoration of trust between those who are elected and Nigerians who have elected them. And that can only be achieved when Nigerians are being told what they think and in their judgment is honest, it is accountable, it is transparent, and something that they can fact check. In the new Ministry of Information and National Orientation, every information that we are provided to Nigerians are facts-based.
We still discuss with the Honorable Speaker to see how they can help this ministry, at least to get something on the supplementary budget that is coming very soon. And 2025 budget too, we will ensure that something better is coming to this ministry.
Members assured more support to the efficient and professional information management style of the minister, Mohammed Idris, and hope that it will be sustained to facilitate the positive turnaround for the good of the nation.
Reactions continue to trail the recent jailbreak at the Suleja Custodial Center, leading to the escape of 119 inmates. Chairman of the House Committee on Reformatory Institutions, Chinedu Oga, while assuring that the legislature will investigate the matter, also called on governments at all levels to play their parts in the funding of correctional facilities.
I'm very much worried towards such incident that happened in Suleja Correctional Service. But the truth of it is that we need to take it holistically. Holistically in the sense that there is already an amended law of correction service where it was changed from prison to correction service and from exclusive to concurrent list. What effort are we doing to make sure that those correction service areas are secured? The manpower is not enough to checkmate. If you did the staff that in that Suleja prison, they are not up to 30. Taking care of almost about 400 and something inmates, being taken care of by 25 personnel or 30 personnel. And out of that 30 personnel, is only 5 people are armed. How do you think of it? That's why I continue complaining as a chairman of Reformatory. There is a pure negligence in correction service. And we only care when it happens, not preventive measure. There is already approval of recruitment of 5,000 staffs by the former president. That paper is nowhere to be found to enable correction service to recruit personnel. And most of the state governors is not doing what they're supposed to do by making sure either they rehabilitate or they build a new correction services. Because most of these offenders, 90% of them are state offenders. What I heard, that it was a fence. If it is a fence that broken, are the inmates inside the yard? Are they not inside the cell? Is the cell broke? So that is some security question we need to ask. That sometimes there are always outside force. And that force is not what the correction service can contain, because they are more sophisticated, they are more powerful than the correction service. It is something we need to checkmate. And this is one of the things I was crying. If at all we have a CCTV camera there, we would have been able to capture all these inmates and to know their whereabouts. Or their data, which is most of the things since I became a chairman of Committee on Reformatory, I've been clamoring on. The budget appropriated to the correction service is not even enough compared to the cost of material today. They cannot even build one. The total money made for the capital for correction service is 14 billion. What can 14 billion do? If we are thinking to build 3,000 capacity of correction service in each of the geopolitical zone. So, we are appealing that the bill we bring back in this 10th assembly of correction service trust fund should be looked into. If correction service trust fund are signed, are passed and are signed into law, there will be a designated amount to the correction service in which most of those things will be looked into. Because as the correction service have problem now, it will affect the masses. Those people out of there will go out there to regroup and get more people concurred to their group and continue destroying, robbing, and doing other things that we bring a dispute to this country. It is something that everybody have to look into. Whatever that we know we can do to put things right in this country, we need to do it. It's not about the government alone. We need to help our government. We need to be part of it. Local government need to come in. State government need to come in. Federal government need to come in. And I urge the Governors Forum to look into it and vote money into that. For example, look at Enugu State Correction Service in Enugu is a pure heart of the market now. Irrespective that the governor have already making move to start off something. But we should urge that. Greater number of these correction services are built in 1914. And they were built in a sketch. Now most of those areas are now urban. Because if a correction service is built in a sketch area, there will be a security measure. For someone to move to that place, you already know what such person is going. But if it is a place that in township, you cannot restrict people that are moving around the town. And that is the time you cannot know what will happen. So it's something that we need a collaboration effort to do what we believe we can do to make sure such occurrence will not happen again.
Consideration of reports is another very common phrase in the Nigerian legislative practice. So, what does it mean and in what context is it used? We asked Chair of the House Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Waiver, to explain it.
When a matter has crossed second reading, that passed second reading, that is, it has been, the first reading is just for members' attention. And then you go and do your research. Then second reading is the debate, where you speak for or against. If it passes at that second reading, it's referred to a committee. That committee will now do either a public hearing or whatever it's required to move it to the next stage. The report that comes from that committee is now considered by the entire membership, not in the sense of plenary this time, but they will be sitting as a committee of everybody, a committee of the whole, that's the term. And what takes place at the committee of the whole is a clause-by-clause consideration of the report from the committee, the specific committee, that House committee that handled that matter and sending that report. So if it's a bill, for instance, you will now be looking at clause 1, because it's not yet a law, so you can't call it a section. Clause 1, everybody has a copy, you read it, for grammatical, for legal correctness, even for typographics. You don't want to be sure the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. So as we look at it, every member has the opportunity to bring up a point of order to say, oh, this one, there's an error here, or this can be corrected here. But it is no longer a point, a moment where you begin to debate the pros and cons, merits or demerits. We have passed that stage. At this point, it's just to be sure that the drafting is okay.
There is only one committee mentioned in the Nigerian Constitution, that is the Public Accounts Committee. And that is why this week on the program, the committee segment plays host to Chair of the House Committee on Public Accounts, Bamidele Salam.
The Public Account Committee is a global standard in every parliament of the world. You always have a Public Account Committee. That's why it's the only committee that is specifically mentioned in Section 85 of the Nigerian Constitution to provide that the report of the Auditor General of the President shall be referred to a Committee on Public Accounts established by the House. Now, beyond that, by virtue of the standing orders of the House, the Public Account Committee also considers issues that have to do with loss of public revenue, non-adherence to financial laws and regulations, non-remittance of fees and revenue to approve anything that has to do with public purse. The Public Account Committee is responsible for those. Interestingly, the Public Account Committee is an omnibus committee. It touches on every ministry, department, and agency of government. There is none that's outside of the radar of the Public Account Committee, as long as such an agency or ministry or department, organization, or any, even if you're a private sector, as long as you have anything to do with public funds, as long as you are charged with administration of public funds, you are within the radar of the Public Account Committee. But because we have to go after the money, we have to ask how monies that are appropriated by the National Assembly are utilized by these different bodies and organizations that are, creation of statutes. And also, we also go into issues that are specifically referred to us by the House in plenary for consideration. For example, the House in plenary mandated the Public Account Committee to investigate funds that were appropriated and released for COVID intervention fund between 2020 and 2022. And that has been a very wide investigation looking at how ministries, departments, agencies, and organizations, utilize the various sources of money of almost 2 trillion naira, which government released to combat the COVID-19 pandemic and to reflate the economy after the cessation of the COVID-19. So we also go into issues that may be specifically referred to us by the House in plenary. Well, unfortunately, the report from the Office of the General is still not up to date, partly because that office was unoccupied for a long time. For over 1 year, the former president did not appoint a substantive Auditor General for the Federation and never appointed an acting Auditor General for the Federation. That impacted negatively on the work of the Auditor General, because the person who was in charge of the office was named Director Overseeing, which is a designation or nomenclature that is alien to the Nigerian Constitution. So because of that, the work of the office was slowed down. But thankfully, the present President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, approved the appointment of a substantive Auditor General who was confirmed by the Senate. And because of that, the new Auditor General had all the powers enabling him to perform that constitutional responsibility. And because of that, he also worked on the, before then, we only had the 2019 Auditor General's report for consideration, but he was able to submit or lay before the House the 2020 Auditor General's report and the consolidated financial statement of the Federation. The Public Accounts Committee of the House of Reps and our counterpart in the Senate met with the new Auditor General and gave him a mandate to work on 2021 and 2022. And he has given us an assurance and submitted a work plan to the effect that other things being equal, before the first quarter of next year, we should have reports running up to 2023, which which he will lay before the House for consideration. So as it were, we are still not up to date, but we are working on fast-tracking the process in a manner that will not make it retroactive at all times. Because now, if you are considering reports of 2020, you are talking about almost 4 years ago. Some of the principal players in the issues under consideration might have retired. Some have, some are even dead, as it were. And this is not very good for a thorough consideration of those reports. So we're working on making sure that these reports are up to date, and we have the commitment of the Auditor General for the Federation to make that happen. We've been in this on this assignment now. I mean, on the seat of the chairman of the committee, and we brought out a few highlights from the 62 meetings we have held so far, and the about 120 agencies that have appeared so far. We're able to distill what the common problems are, one of which is the lack of responsiveness on the part of MDAs. Just this morning, I had an NDA, I would not want to mention them, that called in to take an excuse. We're giving them an invitation for the third time to come and respond to audit query. And for the third time, they are still bringing up excuses on why they could not make it. You also have cases where you ask for documents to be submitted so that we can interrogate those documents and decide whether we need physical attendance or not. And then you have them not responding. And these are very big institutions of government. You covered the incident that had to do with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, for example. We had an investigation on remitter collections on behalf of government and revenue leakages. And then the Federal Inland Revenue Service is supposed to give us an input that can serve like the bedrock, like the raw material. And we wrote severally to the FIRS. We got no response. We invited the chairman of the FIRS. Unfortunately, he did not come at that time. We have so many of such instances where MDAs do not respond to invitation, do not respond to summon, and do not submit documents on time. Of course, there are some other factors, such as the non-digitalization of the processes and procedure of the committee, which we are trying to tackle as we speak, to ensure that we use more of paper, we have more of electronic processes in our work, where MDAs can submit documents without necessarily carrying all these things in big bags and bringing, a paper document. They can submit them through a central portal system. We have a system where we can send them questions well ahead to know those issues that they are coming to deal with. We are almost at the verge of completing that, and by the time the 10th Assembly will be 1 year in office in June, We're going to be unveiling the digitalized public account committee here in Rome, which will make us work smartly and more seamlessly. These are some of the problems that we have. Of course, you also have cases of people even deliberately trying to mislead the committee with false information and inaccurate information. We had a case where a ministry came, on COVID-19 and supplied about half of the information on the monies that they received. But because we also have other sources of information, we have to confront them with the information that we had. And what about, this sum of money that you collected for this, and then, they got to know that we actually have, a fact. That happens also on a few occasions. These are some of the problems that we confront in our work, but with determination and zeal of members of the Public Account Committee, we're able to overcome them to ensure that we deliver on our mandates.
Such an important mandate. You and your reps will be rooting for the House Committee on Public Accounts to meet the expectations of Nigerians in the performance of its duties. And that's the program. Thanks for your time. I am Victor as you join us again.